camera angles aside, is your day going okay there?
Yeah, I'm you're interview number 2, so
okay, so
I'm 5, so yeah.
I'm gonna do everything I can to not make you repeat a single story.
Good luck.
Well, getting the housekeeping out of the way, the new record, was it easy to make?
Well, yes and no. So it had been a long time since I made a solo record.
Mm-hmm.
Once I started the process, it wasn't that it was hard, but I did challenge myself in a lot of ways. Since I made a few solo records, I didn't want to be repetitive or redundant, so I did work hard on things like lyrics, making sure you didn't know what the rhyme was going to be.
Right.
Things like that is important to me. Just trying to be a little bit more creative and not, being cliche. So, that was hard. That was definitely work. But, easy in a sense of once you start playing, it's easy. I mean, there are times where, I recorded my guitar tracks and went, I'm going to change the sound. And I completely recut the guitar tracks again. So, yeah, I mean, it's easy in that sense. But, I did do this record before the pandemic. I mean, it's actually been done for a couple of years. We just didn't, put it out because of the pandemic and everything.
Got it. I've been following your solo career intently since the Swag album. I loved that one. It was more of a power pop feel, which is, whereas this is more of your inner Johnny Thunders coming out. It's more of your rock kind of thing. Is rock one more of a natural feel for you to, one, be the power pop guy, or two, be the more heavier rock and roll guy?
Well, I think that for me, this record is exactly who I am and what I like in music. I think, for me, the choruses have that pop feel, but the riffs are more on the rock side, which has always kind of been my goal from day one, is, trying, like, I do like pop music. Like, I hear a Green Day song and I think it's fantastic, but I love that punk edge. I've always tried to find my way around that. I like the Rolling Stones guitars or the weaving guitars, but I like a little bit more of a poppier chorus. So I think that this record is very, I kind of hit the nail on the head as far as descriptive. It's exactly what I think I do as a musician and as a solo artist.
For you, now, you mentioned the guitar tones, redoing them, and people who dig a little bit will see that you sometimes sell gear online, that you're a real gearhead. Do you really care about the tones? In other words, when you write the song, is it done, or do you write the song and then play around with the tones?
No, I had this started this record. I already saw what I wanted it to be as far as tones. I went for a more of a classic rock kind of guitar sound. Like, I was listening to Bad Company, Rick Derringer, Joe Walsh before I started the record. And that's because I love those 70s records. I love the guitar tones. Everybody was cleaner, not clean as in Jangle U2, but clean as in there wasn't so much gain on the guitars. Now everybody's band, there's so much gain. I'm getting lost in the playing. It's like I'm not hearing it the way you could hear it back then. So I made a conscious choice. Yes, I did hear that sound ahead of time, which is really all I've been doing my whole life. I mean, this record is my Marshall JCM JMP 50 watt on one side and a Vox AC30 on the other, on the whole record. It didn't change. So, yes, I did. I was very conscious of what I wanted it to sound like.
Well, you just answered half of the next thing, which I was going to ask, which is if you're using patches for your guitar sound, or if it was a typical JCM, a typical stack kind of situation.
Yeah, all real guitars. I never used a emulator, a Fractal, a Kemper, Pod or whatever. No, it's just not my thing. I like pushing air. It's to me, we lose so much in Pro Tools, as far as width and depth, that to me, you've got to push air on both sides. And I don't double. Like, I mean, there are parts where maybe it sounds the same and stuff, but I'm not, it's not 10 tracks of guitars on each side. It's really one on each side. A couple solos might be double little, but I really do take the less is more approach. And even in the bass, modern records, bass is just the low end of the guitar. It's not doing anything. Very conscious, I mean, even going back to like Kiss records, of how Gene always had these great lines around some of those great Ace Frehley riffs. And I did that. I wanted the bass to be moving with the drums. And keeping the drums and the bass separate from the guitar. Like I said, once again, it's a conscious decision, and I worked hard at getting that right.
Does that mean that your house or your home studio is like a gear museum where it's just guitar after guitar? Or is it really just 2 or 3 guitars does everything?
No, I mean, I do have. Look, I don't consider myself a collector, but I do have a lot of stuff. I mean, I have a great studio in my house. I actually have a tracking room, a control room, and I do keep probably about 30 guitars here, and probably about maybe 20 amps. But I have a locker full of stuff, trying to thin it out. But this record was really made on probably about 6 guitars. Like, once again, if the left side was a 1959 Les Paul Jr. in my Marshall 50 watt, the other side maybe my Zemetis through an AC30 or my Duesenberg through an AC30. Like, I changed those up a lot, and always the solo was a different guitar and a different amp. I never double up. Yeah, that's my thing, is I like to always use a different amp on each side. And like I said, the solo is different. To me, that's what helps get a little separation in the Pro Tools world. To me, it does.
Wow. Okay. I was reading recently about this guitarist who's trying to figure out the solo to Crazy Train all these years later and figuring out why it never sounded like the record. It was that Randy Rhoads was doubling the solos with the intention of them being a little bit off. So you actually can't recreate them with one song, with one guitar. Did you ever do anything crazy like that?
All the time. I like to, well, can't say I created this trick, but I really like what Mick Ronson did, like in Ziggy Stardust, where he had like a half-cocked wah-wah, and there's a track on the record, it's called Tightwad, where that's what the solo is. One side is like a half-cocked and the other side is like 3/4 cocked. And I do things like that. Sometimes you'll hear an acoustic come in for a certain part. Actually, in the song Gospel Truth, I use God, what do they call them? It's an octave. It's called the Blue Box. It's made by MXR. I have one of the old ones, and it's basically like an octave pedal, and that's what you can hear on Tightwad when you're doing and it's just in there just enough, so it doesn't sound like just a regular guitar in there. But yeah, I love those little tricks.
Wow. Okay. Well, bringing it back to you and what you're actually doing in this record, you mentioned before that you finished this a couple of years ago. Does that mean that you have like the next album and a half written? You have another 30 songs just so done?
Well, I'm not the kind of person that writes 30 songs and puts 10 on the record. I write 10 songs and put 10 songs on the record. If it doesn't feel good to me, it doesn't really make the cut, in the beginning stages. But with that being said, what is unique about this record is, first of all, it's 10 original songs. I usually do a couple covers on a record. In every solo record I've ever made, I've had a couple covers. There's no covers, 10 originals. And I do have a couple left over. And when I was finishing the record, I was kind of on a roll. So yes, I do kind of have like a half a record's worth of new material. Whether I make a solo record or a band project, I don't know what it's going to be. But I do have some more material like ready to go pretty much.
And when you mentioned the covers, and you mentioned Mick Ronson before, I love the Diamond Dogs cover that you did on the Swag record. Yeah. Any hints as to what those covers or things in the can might be?
Well, yeah, I have a great version of the Cowboy song, which we've been doing in my solo band's live set for a while now. But I have a version that I've recorded, and I have a video ready to roll with myself and Warren DeMartini on guitar, Jimmy DeAnda on drums, and Sean McNabb on bass. That's done. It's not, like I said, it's not part of the record or anything. It's just something I just did for fun with my friends. And like I said, between myself and Warren playing guitar, it really came out good.
That is a super rare Warren sighting. No one's seen anything he's done in like 3-4 years. So looking forward to eventually seeing that. And another thing that I'm super curious about with your discography is that you've been on so many labels that have come and gone, like V2 and Spitfire, that I'm wondering.
And Virgin, the first Virgin label.
The first Virgin too. I was wondering if you were ever thinking of doing any kind of a re-record retrospective to kind of get all these things into one place, because otherwise it's kind of, there's 5 great things there, there's 2 there. It's always been hard to keep track of you, although the quality's always been very high. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I mean, first of all, I'm really bad at that kind of stuff. I prioritize what I'm kind of like doing at the moment, because I don't do anything half-assed. Like if I'm making a record, I'm making a record. I'm not thinking about the record cover and blah blah blah. I'm thinking about the record. But anyway, there is talk. As a matter of fact, I've been in negotiations with 2 different labels about putting out the past records all in one place. The only hurdle that's been happening is I own all my solo records except for number 1 is Pawn Shop Guitars on Virgin, and I don't own that. Somebody recently released it on vinyl, which I thought was amazing. I had nothing to do with it, but I am in talks right now about getting all those together. It was part of this process of let's get a new record out, remind people I'm alive, I still play guitar, and then let's put a compilation out and get everything in. Like I love what Zakk Wylde did with his new black box set. It's so badass. I really like that approach.
The key is whether or not people realize that you sound like you're busy all the time, making stuff all the time. It's just how they find is sometimes kind of the mystery. I agree. You're not the most mysterious person who's ever played around Guns N' Roses, but you're in the upper echelon of that. Because when you think about it, what do we really know about Gilby Clarke? It's like he makes great albums, he plays guitar, and all that. So is that mystique? Is that on purpose, or is just no one asks this stuff?
Well, I think it's a combination of all 3. I think it's I don't want to say I'm protective, because like I said, I will do some Zoom things with people that have small followings if I feel that they're contributing something and they just haven't caught their break yet. So I don't feel like I'm protective, but I am choosy. It's like I don't do everything. I certainly don't do everything. I do have a couple rules about stuff. I don't want to be repetitive. I don't want to be saying the same thing over just for your audience. And that's I don't know. It's just you'll lose me. So I try to, like I said, I try to do things that are important. And we all go through those periods. It's like people didn't know I played guitar for Heart. People didn't know I played guitar for MC5, but I didn't have to do a publicity tour for this stuff. It's what do I want to do? I'm okay with where I am in the world. I've been with the guys that can't go to the gas station, put gas in their car. They can't ride their motorcycle to Mexico and get bugged all the time. I don't want to be those guys. I'm pretty cool where I am right now.
And besides Heart, besides all that, you also played with Nancy Sinatra for a long time. That's a really cool gig that you had going. Was that like 3-4 years of your life?
It was probably about 5 years of my life, because I did it a little bit on and off, made a couple records with her, did a couple tours, a couple just one-off shows. Nancy, is a class act. First of all, she's Italian. I'm Italian. We have that in common. And her bandmates were from that original Wrecking Crew session monster group, Don Randy and Hal Blaine, who now has since passed.
Yes.
But playing with those guys is a privilege. They can teach you so much. I mean, even though I came from Guns N' Roses, I just zip my mouth and let them talk. And it was also a challenge for me because it's a reading gig. They don't, she doesn't hand you 25 songs and say, learn them. She hands you 25 sheets of music and you have to learn them, and she may change 5 songs at soundcheck and 3 songs at showtime. And it's just boom, sheet music, and not just sheet music written in pencil.
Wow. Okay.
So there's challenges.
That was not an easy gig. And I have a random question that I have to relay to you from a friend of mine who is in some kind of a weird early version of Candy. He did a couple of fill-in gigs. His name is Mike Viola. And
the guitar player Mike.
Yeah, he's now an A&R guy. He sang That Thing You Do. He wrote stuff for Get Him to the Greek. And I'm not sure if he sang a couple of gigs as a fill-in thing because JD told him to. I don't know what it was. But he told me that there was a song called Daddy's a Jet, and the lick is very similar to Sweet Child of Mine. And he was curious if the tone and the mix and the riff had any connection, that if the GNR guys ever knew of that song or pure coincidence.
So first of all, Daddy is a Jet was before I was in Candy. Yeah, so it wasn't even me playing guitar. Yeah, that was that was kind of when they were just starting and getting their footing and stuff. I actually joined after that, but yeah, there's zero connection. I have talked to Slash about it. For Slash, he's said this a million times. It was just like a little exercise he was doing that the guys liked it. But that type of playing really came from Mick Ronson once again. It's like he was so melodic, and we were all looking for that, all the young dudes melodic moment. And I can't answer for Slash, but I know I have been searching for that melodic moment myself.
Wow. And I didn't know until this past weekend, Jack and Diane came on in a bar I was at. And I didn't know Mick Ronson had a hand in that song. Do I have that correct?
I don't know. Yeah, that I wouldn't know anything about. Yeah.
Whatever it is, recapping what I've learned here. You've got a great new album. It's been done for a bit, but there's some leftovers that are good. We might see a video. We might see some of your discography that's out of print happen again, except Pawn Shop Guitars, because that's kind of in a black box.
Well, that's the trick, is we're trying to put Pawn Shop as part of it. Put it, get it all together. It wouldn't make sense to do everything but. So that's why we're trying to work that out.
But you're happy with where you are. You're creating all the time, and that's what there is to learn about Gilby Clarke, right?
True. It's only rock and roll, but I like it.
And then my last question for you, out of nowhere, if somebody needs a new TV show to start watching, do you have a recommendation or two to give along?
Wow. I got to tell you, we are in a golden age of television right now. I mean, we always were, look, some of us, grew up with all those 70s TV shows, but man, I don't know if they were good, but man, there's some great television. I'm binging a show that actually has been over for a few years now, called Banshee. Oh yeah. Like I said,
Ivana Milesevic, I think her name is.
I mean, the guy Anthony stars in the show The Boys.
Yeah.
Currently out. But anyway, I'm dinging it because it's always a trick finding a show that you and your wife can watch together. The ladies like something different. For me, you got to have a little action, a little shooting, a little strangling. So Banshee's been a fun one. I mean, it does get a little crazy at times, but I like it. I'm having a good time watching Banshee.
So great taste in music and television. Well, I can't thank you enough for your time, Gilby. Really looking forward to everything that's coming from you in the near future. Hope to see you live in New York when things are normal again.
Right on, Darren, man. Thanks for doing your part, man. Rock and roll.
My pleasure. Take care.
Paltrocast.